it's definitely a juggle, and I don't know, I think it's more fulfilling because it's kind of cool to like go on a climbing trip and then come home and like be working on cool projects with Alpine Start. Oh, it's not sending 514, but like, launching a new product, getting your hands dirty, like trying to create a new product it's its own fulfilling thing.
This is the Adventure Sports Podcast, where we talk to athletes, adventurers, and business owners from around the world of adventure sports. Whether you're climbing Mount Everest, starting a bike shop, or getting up off your couch to take your kids hiking for the first time, we want you to have the motivation and inspiration you need to chase that next adventure. The Adventure Sports Podcast is brought to you by Camp Crate, the leaders in fully planned self-guided backpacking adventures, as well as backpacking gear rental. You can check them out at campcrate.net. I learned a very interesting fact over the weekend, and it's going to sound crazy, it's going to sound backwards, but we have 10 times as many trees on Earth as there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. That's about, a lot of scientists agree there's around 300 billion stars in the Milky Way, and some estimates have come out saying that there's around 3 trillion trees on Earth, which is mind-blowing. Which is, they're obviously estimates, but of course, even if they were really, really wrong, the fact is, even estimated, it's 10 times as many trees on Earth. So just the fact that there are more trees on Earth than there are stars in the Milky Way, that blows my mind itself. And if you don't believe me, just look it up. Maybe it's proven wrong later, but I thought it was really awesome. That's so cool to me, and I just really liked it. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the podcast today. Today we are talking to Matt Segal. He is a professional climber, North Face athlete. If you're in the climbing world, I'm sure you heard his name. He's done a lot of amazing things, but we're not talking about his climbing career as much as we're talking about how early on, his early life, as well as he started a company a few years ago called Alpine Start Coffee, and we use it in our camp crates. We send to every customer, we send them some of this coffee to use because it's perfect for the backcountry. But how the transition was for Matt to go from professional climbing to the business world and to kind of balance those two, because he still does both of them and he's pretty, carefree guy, probably never saw himself as a business owner. So it's cool to see him doing so well in this market. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. It was a lot of fun. And today's sponsors are Athletic Brewing. I've said it before, they make the best non-alcoholic craft beer. I could have used some the last time I had some craft beer because I did not agree with it, and it was not pleasant. So I wish I could have, instead of drinking full strength, I could have had something a little lighter to go with. They are also funding our Adventure Sports Podcast Adventure Grant. If you've got someone doing an adventure this year, $1,000 we're giving away. Applications open to June 1st, open June 1st. We're announcing on the show June 15th who won. It's going to be awesome. And also CS Instant Coffee. They make 100% Arabica coffee in compostable packaging. So it completely breaks down. The Alpine Start does not do that. So boom, take that, Alpine Start. No, I'm just playing. Both great companies, both making incredible products. And also a new sponsor, The Nomadic. They send subscription boxes for outdoor enthusiasts by outdoor enthusiasts, and we're actually giving away 3-month subscription boxes. I think 3 of those to some people that sign up. So sign up, the link's in our show notes, and you could have 3 months of a free subscription box filled with outdoor gear picked by outdoor enthusiasts. And sign up for that. It'd be awesome if you won. Anyway, let's get into this episode. So, hey everybody, welcome to today's show. Today we have Matt Segal. He's a climber. A lot of people know him from that. He's also done some films, which are really funny, and some cool projects there. He loves to ski, and if you've ever had Alpine Start coffee, He is. Is it? Are you the co-founder of that, Matt?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm the co-founder. Yeah.
perfect. All right. Well, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. I'm in Colorado here. It's pretty snowy.
Oh yeah. Are you? Where are you at in Colorado?
I live in Boulder.
Oh,
So we
cool.
just got like over a foot of snow yesterday. It was pretty good. And
You know, I know you're from Florida, and I am too. And so I want to hear about like how did that go for you, and how did you end up doing what you do now out here in the mountains?
yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like I basically had kind of the modern rock climber story where I started climbing in the gym in Florida. I was about a teenager, started climbing when I was like 12, got way into competition climbing to start. So I guess, okay, to take a step back, I went to a camp in North Carolina where I'd experienced rock climbing first, when I was like probably like 9 or 10. And one summer came home and from camp, all fired up, and they had built a gym in Miami. So immediately I started climbing at the climbing gym. And then from there, obviously got into competitions because, you know, when all you have is a gym in Florida, that's what you do. You go and you train and, you know, you do comps. And for me, at such a young age, and being in Florida, it was kind of a balance of, you know, being good at it pretty right away and then starting to train a lot. I kind of had a lot of early successes in the competition climbing world. And from there, all throughout high school, I was like traveling to do comps, the youth climbing series, and then eventually the adult climbing series. And eventually, like all of the competition climbing kind of just brought me to climbing outside.
Right. And you know what were your parents into it, and why did you pick that over like other things to do in Miami?
It's a good thing. My parents were not into it. You know, I was the only one, and I feel like they were super supportive of it. But they weren't into it. You know, they were into me being into it. You know, like
yeah.
You know, my mom would travel all over the country with me, taking me to competitions. When I was old enough to travel to Europe for competitions, she would bring me and my sister to Europe. And, you know, we'd go on like a summer vacation.
Right.
I would do a competition and then we'd go do some tourist stuff. I'd try to sneak away and go climbing outside and, you know, visited Segal and Fontainebleau in France the first couple years when I was a kid, and was just kind of that started to plant the seed for outdoor climbing. But no, it was funny because most kids these days, their parents are into it. But yeah, mine weren't into it. But again, they were super supportive. I mean, from, you know, as high school for me was interesting. I was way more into climbing than anything else. And oftentimes I'd miss the first week of school and the last week of school. Because the last week of school was typically when we had the U.S. National championships that I would always travel to. And then the first week of school was when we'd all go to Europe for the European Youth Championships. So they were pretty, you know, supportive of that. My senior year in high school, I did a work study course where I'd go to the climbing gym and train basically. You know, I also worked at the climbing gym, but they definitely allowed me to, you know, really focus on climbing.
It's hard to gauge your skill when you're in a place like that where it's so far from other climbers. How promising was it? Were people like, "Whoa, you're good," or was it just
that was a really interesting, the first year, it basically went you're the best climber in Florida, you know, and it was
right.
and basically
right.
the coaches that I had, Keenan and Derek Wagner, they kind of just beat me to submission to force me to be humble. I don't know if they knew at the time that I had potential, you know. They saw me as an eager kid. And when I was did my first, I think I was 14 and I did my first national competition, you know, so this is climbers from all over the country, and got third. I think everybody was like, whoa, okay, maybe he actually is good, but maybe it was a fluke, you know?
Right.
So that first year was definitely shock and awe because, you know, I didn't know. I was used to being good, but I also knew that I was in such a secluded kind of region of the country for climbing that, after my first national competition, I was like, okay, like it's time to try even harder because, if I live in Florida and I'm placing third, like I could do better than that if I just tried harder. So, you know, I think it had its pluses and its minuses being, super secluded. But then again, I graduated high school and like immediately like, went to Europe and then moved to Colorado. So
you moved to Boulder, right?
yeah, I basically graduated high school in 2002 and like skipped my high school graduation and went to Europe. I was competing in World Cups for the season and then moved straight to Boulder, and kind of took a semester off and got situated here and was training and was kind of really focused on being a professional rock climber. And my parents really wanted me to go to college. So I kind of pressed pause on, seeking out like big sponsorships and stuff like that and kind of focused on going to school. And for me, that was like an awesome time because I ended up finding a school that I was really interested in what I studied. And it also just, allowed me to be in Boulder and climb a lot. I climbed a lot when I was in college and I was still competing a fair bit, but, kind of towards like my sophomore year, junior year of college, I started to realize that I was kind of over the competitions, and started climbing outside more and eventually started trad climbing. And for me, it was one of those things that I was just, I don't know, sick of being in the gym all the time. And I knew in order for me to do really well in the comps, like you have to like climb in the gym. And I was having so much fun climbing outside.
So when you first got there, I don't know, were you surprised by like, did you have to keep your head down or like, wow, I'm not a big fish in a small pond now? Or were you still like, no, I'm doing pretty well?
Honestly, when I was a kid, there was no putting my head down. Yeah, I was a little rowdy. I definitely, I don't know. I was into the whole scene and yeah, I was still like super young and still really motivated to like kind of, push it and still am, but in a different way. Back then it was like, hard to explain, but I would not say putting my head down was one thing that I accelerated at, like I definitely was loud and obnoxious and used to like play up being from Miami and wear like a white sports coat to competitions. And, they called me Miami Vice and, you could go from there.
Oh my gosh. So you say you've changed. How have you changed?
Well, you get older a little bit and you're kind of like, okay, maybe it's, maybe you don't have to be the loudest one all the time.
Right. Right. So, what did you study in college?
So I went to a school called Naropa University, in Boulder and studied, it's kind of like a liberal arts college. And I double majored actually in religious studies with the emphasis in Tibetan Buddhism and psychology. And to be honest, it was like one of those things that I knew once I graduated, I wanted to be a professional climber. So I was like, why am I going to like go to school for something that I don't really care about at the moment? Why don't I just go to school for something that I'm like super into? And that's what I did.
Probably helped parents make them a little happy too, knowing you were in school still.
Totally.
I don't think you were planning to be a monk or anything, but that's an interesting field of study, Tibetan Buddhism. Why that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, trying to step back to the time, I think I was just interested in it. I think, I was introduced to some Buddhist philosophy books and stuff in high school. And, it just seemed like a really cool school, which it was. It was super alternative learning styles. And I kind of, I don't know. I was really intrigued by it.
Are you glad you did it?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, now fast forward 15 years later, I have a business. I'm kind of like, maybe it would have been helpful if you would have went to a business school. But honestly, like, I don't know, you could learn all that stuff. It's like, it was a really special time in my life. And I was like really engaged in what I was learning. So, and I don't think you can really like take that away,
No, I agree. And I'm glad you're talking about it because I don't know. I feel like college is getting a lot of hate lately with price, and there is a lot of wrong with the system of higher education. But man, I tell you what, I studied something that doesn't have anything to do with what I do now. I was just interested, and I'd say it opened my world up completely. It's not really applicable. It's not a huge job market for it, but just the experience that it brought with it has not made me money, but it changed me forever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. And it's like, I think it's good, like at that age, to have some structure in school and kind of like to learn how to learn type of situation is really good. And honestly, I do think that, like, a lot of these kids that like go right to business school, they get like kind of shoved in boxes, and I think for me, like, I graduated college in 2007. And then, I basically like put my life on a credit card and became a professional climber. Like
right.
I graduated college and went straight to Yosemite Valley, like did the free rider. That's how I got my start, and then shortly after that, I got sponsored by the North Face, and, I've spent the last, 10, 12 years traveling, being a professional climber until, I still am, but, the last 2 years, I would say 3 years, I've been splitting my life in half, kind of, with Alpine Start, my coffee company, and being a professional climber.
Athletic Brewing is pioneering non-alcoholic craft beer. Yeah, I said non-alcoholic craft beer. And there's a number of reasons you might want to do that, whether you're training for an event, which a lot of our listeners are, or, if you're babysitting and don't want to be drunk in case something happens. I mean, stuff happens, but you still want to sit down and enjoy the game and have a beer. This is an incredible option for a full-flavored, full-bodied beer. Each can is only 50 to 70 calories, with IPA, golden ales, stouts, and tons of seasonal offerings. Athletic Brewing is a great option if you want that craft brewery taste, but not deal with the effects of alcohol itself. If you'd like to save 15% on your first order, go to athleticbrewing.com and use the code ADVENTURE at checkout. Now, I want to talk about Alpine Start, but what I like what you mentioned is if you're in school to make more money and just to be rich, I don't think you're there for the right reasons. It can be, but I think college is definitely meant to just open up your worldview and introduce you to things you never think you learn. And I don't know about you, man, but a lot of business, like you said, I don't like when people get a degree in it because a lot of business is just really intuitive. It's really common sense based, like, make something that people like, spend less money than you make. I don't know. I know some not educated people that run a very successful business, and it seems more about how you treat people that makes it work.
Totally. Yeah. I can't agree more. And, in a lot of ways, my education and, being a professional climber and like having partners and working with people have like prepared me more than, for starting a business than for any like business degree would have ever done. Sure, there's like details and that, fortunately, like I've created a team at Alpine Start that, can kind of fill in the gaps where I lack.
Right. So can you tell us, like, what were the first few steps or like big breaks that kind of gave you a foothold in the professional climbing world? Because that's a hard career to forge. But
it is.
But you've done it.
I think one of the biggest things with that is timing is everything, with so many things in life. And I'll just take a quick step back from the competition climbing. I got really into single pitch trad climbing. And that was because I felt like I was able to do something that pushed myself physically and mentally, like competition climbing, and climb these routes that were super difficult and really dangerous, most of the time. So at the time, there wasn't that many people climbing 514 trad routes. There still isn't today, but back then there definitely wasn't that many at all. There was like a small handful in the United States. And I think, was the biggest, I put up this route in El Dorado Canyon called the Iron Monkey that's still only seen like one true ascent. And I think that was one of the climbs for me that kind of put me in the map, so to say, and made people notice me beyond the competition climbing. And, from there, I was able to get sponsored by the North Face, which was like the biggest, those guys have kind of been the backbone of my climbing career for over a decade. And I think at first I got sponsored by them because, I was doing something that just not that many people were doing, and that's like adventure, single pitch, like going and putting up, hard trad climbs like in Colorado, and eventually like started traveling internationally once I got sponsored by them. But, this was before Instagram and Facebook were things, like now you try to get sponsored and it's not just how good you are, but it's like, how many followers do you have and all of that stuff.
Yeah. How social media savvy are you?
Social media. But back then it was a little bit different. Social media wasn't really a component. It was more of like, okay, like, are you accomplished? And then what's your potential and what's your willingness? Like, so for me, like the first couple of years I was sponsored by the North Face, like arguably like my hardest climbs were done a little bit before and then years later. But because the first couple of years was just like, yes, like, and I got to like do all these like crazy rad climbing trips that were adventures. And like, I went to China like 3 times. I went to Nepal a couple times and really just like, that at the time was like, it really took like a baseline of difficult like accomplishments and then kind of the willingness to just be like, all right, sure. Like, I don't need to make a lot of money. I just want to like travel and do rad stuff, which sounds really appealing. But then, like if that's how it had to be for me this time, like at this age, like being gone for like 9 months out of the year, like it was a lot. Like it took a lot. Yeah.
Right. So can I just ask you, because I've actually never had the chance, what does being sponsored by a big company like that look like before social media? Did they approach you? Did you reach out to them? How did that work?
It was kind of a combination. I had some really good friends that were on the team already, and they recommended me basically. They were like, okay, like, I think this guy's got potential, like, you should sign him. And I had a bunch of friends on the team that are still on the team, Cedar Wright, Renan Ozturk, Emily Harrington and I signed with the North Face the same year. Daniel Wood signed the year before us. So, it was, I think back then it was like word of mouth. Like, what have you done? Like, obviously, like I've been featured in Rock and Ice and Climbing Magazine, and so there was information about me. There still was the internet and forums and stuff like that. So like they were able to like gather stuff. But now it's like totally different. It's like you have to like build a personal brand. And I think all the people in my generation, like we kind of got lucky. If we got a big sponsor back then, we had these brands help create our brands in some ways, like help kind of usher our own social medias along and like all that stuff. It's definitely a much different playing field now to be a professional athlete than it was when I started over a decade ago. Yeah.
And how has it changed for you? Because you established your, not brand, but like your name beforehand. How has this rise in social media changed the way you do your brand? Do you like it, or?
I don't know, man. Every day is different. Sometimes I find it to be super annoying, and I look at like social media to be like a job, and I'm like, this sucks. Like, ugh, like it's so annoying. And then other times I'm like, sweet, like it's cool. Like this is like part of this is work, and shoot, there's like worse work to be doing, and but it's a balance of like trying to be yourself and be authentic and still like kind of like promote the brands that you work for. But I don't know, like what my life is so different now, it's seeming, than it was when I first started being a professional climber, because back then I literally only focused on climbing. Everything took a backseat, like relationships, like everything in life, like took a backseat to climbing. And I think that's just also growing up, like I was like in my early 20s, like I gave zero fucks about everything except for climbing. And now like like I'm turning 35 this year, and I like to ski, like I like to do other things. I have a business. Like social media is like a whole other component that didn't exist. It's like another business. So you just end up like kind of like splitting your time dividing things up. So for me, like I skied this weekend. I took the weekend off from training for climbing and skied and have fun. And Monday morning rolled around and I woke up at 6 o'clock and went to the climbing gym and trained. And now like I'm, doing this podcast from the Alpine Start office,
That's
and
awesome.
I'll be here for a couple hours and then I'll go back to the gym and train a little bit more. And that's kind of, like the days of my week kind of are balanced between like climbing, being at Alpine Start and skiing. And then, like the year is done the same way, like I traveled a lot earlier in the year and the end of last year on some like kind of big, one kind of expedition, one just fun ski trip. And then, I was home for 2 months, and then March I'll be traveling for climbing. And then I'll be home in April and May and June. So it's definitely a juggle, and it's more, I don't know, I think it's more fulfilling because it's kind of cool to like, like go on a climbing trip and then come home and like be working on cool projects with Alpine Start. It's definitely like, oh, it's not sending 514, but like, launching a new product or like getting your hands dirty, like trying to create a new product it's its own fulfilling thing. Yeah.
I like what you're saying because, like, what are the chances climbing's the only thing you're passionate about? Because you only have so much time to try things. You don't know if there's something in you that's more passionate. You just haven't even tried yet. And so when life kind of forces you into these roles, due to injury or due to just circumstance, if you can look at it as opportunity, I think that's really, really awesome. And if you can hold on to that passion your whole life, even better. But it's awesome how when you mature, you see these other things that you probably thought before, oh, that sounds terrible. It's really, really fulfilling, like business. You probably didn't think when you were studying Buddhism that you'd ever be a businessman.
No, not at all. And I guess at the end of the day, that is like the cool thing about life. Like when I was like 14 years old, like training for competitions in the US, like never did I ever think that I would be sponsored by the North Face, like and being a professional climber that's like traveling the world to go climbing. And then, once I got sponsored by the North Face and like was a climber for so many years, never did I ever think that I would like start my own business, and like create a product that people buy in the stores. Like I still go to Whole Foods and see Alpine Start on the shelf and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy.
Right. Well, why don't you just go ahead and tell us that? Because I send people backpacking. I plan self-guided backpacking trips with my partner, and people wanted coffee. So we started looking around and we picked Alpine Start and people love it. And I looked into it and saw that you had co-founded it. And once we acquired the podcast, I'm like, man, I'd love to have him on to talk about that. I use it all the time myself. And I just want to know what led to that idea. How did you come into the coffee world, instant coffee world of all things?
So, the story, like, I don't know, I guess I was climbing on an expedition in the Bugaboos in Canada and spending the whole, I would go there and just auger for like months at a time, like in the mountains for 2 months, just like living out of a tent and blah, 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 and realized that, I don't know, coffee is such a huge part of my life and so many climbers' lives and so many people's lives in general. And kind of was on this trip and just realized that like, if you want instant coffee, that's not, Nescafe, like in a single serve form for like backpacking or big wall climbing, Starbucks was the only one that was doing it.
Right.
So I don't know, my kind of wheels, and it was at the time where, I guess this was like 3 years ago. So I was like 30 and realizing that, I didn't really want to be a professional climber my whole life. And it was like, oh, should I I was there with my buddy, Will Stanhope, and he was like training to be like a full rock guide and was kind of going through like his core stuff with him. And I was like, do I want to do this? Like, do I want to commit to like being a guide? Like that seems kind of crazy. And eventually I came home and brought the idea to my business partner, Alex Hannafin, who was a kind of my girlfriend's roommate at the time, who had like worked in the natural food space. And it took us a while to really motivate, but eventually we like motivated, and she kind of shopped the idea around with friends and thought it was a good idea. So it's kind of like my vision and then her expertise in the natural food world is what really got us off the ground.
I want to take a second to tell you about The Nomadic. It's a subscription box curated for outdoor enthusiasts by outdoor enthusiasts. So each month you get a hand-picked selection of the latest and greatest outdoor gear that's been trip tested and approved by the Nomadic product team, which is made up of guides, athletes, and bona fide adventurers. They partner with brands like Mountainsmith, Gearaid, Sea-Line, Mizu, Empowered, RX Bar, and a lot more. This month's theme is Relax to the Max. So one item inside is an exclusive hammock by Lawson Hammocks, an award-winning hammock maker who's been voted #1 by Backpacker and Outside Magazine. So order by May 14th to get this box. So get quality gear by brands you trust delivered right to your doorstep monthly. Learn more at thenomadic.com/ASP. This episode is also sponsored by CS Instant Coffee, 100% Arabica coffee with compostable packaging, and you can find them at csinstant.coffee and use adventure at checkout for 20% off. So what were the first few, steps for you? Was it, how involved were you? Did you kind of hand the idea over to them, or did you all work together pretty evenly?
Oh no, we worked together drastically. So we at first we were like, oh, do we want to try to like make our own product out of our own facility? And we kind of realized that we didn't want to do that because that would just take a ton of capital. And this was like, we weren't raising any money. This was like, my credit card and Alex's credit card. And basically what we did is we kind of did a ton of research and found a bunch of facilities that were making instant coffee, and started working with them and finding, the facilities that were doing the best work, and eventually like found a great partner to create our original blend. So it was a lot of basically the first like 6 months of this process was just tasting a lot of really shitty instant coffee.
So did this fulfill anything for you pursuing this? What was it that kept you pursuing this idea? Did you just enjoy the process?
That's a good question. There was definitely like the beginning was hard because, we just kept getting bad batches and tasting shitty stuff and was like, oh, this doesn't work. And then like the thoughts of the future kind of like really started to motivate me and creating a brand. I had the name from the start. Just because, Alpine Start and climbing is getting up super early. So yeah. And then I think once we like had our product in our hands, it was really motivating to see something that you made,
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, seeing an idea go from your head into your hand is a cool process.
Totally. Yeah.
And then what? What did you do? Just push it out as much as you could?
Yeah, basically we started really small. We did direct sales on our website. We got into a couple small retailers and then got into like Whole Foods regionally. REI took us on nationwide, which was like a really big step for us. And then we started growing our team,
wow.
Slowly and slowly. So at first it was just Alex and I, and my sister, Amy, did a lot of the early design work and graphic design. And branding stuff. And then we brought on Michael Crouch, who came from the pet food industry, and he kind of really dialed in all of our operations, and, everybody's still here. So, yeah.
Wow. So what has the journey been like for you? Is it, do you enjoy what it's becoming? Do you enjoy working on it? And what's your role now?
Oh, yeah, for sure. My role is I've kind of just call myself the founder and do a lot of, kind of random things from marketing stuff to like high level decisions of like where we're going to go, what new products we're going to do. The last couple of weeks I've been focusing on new products, where we're going to take the company. Right now we have 3 products on the market. We have our original blend coffee, we have a dirty chai, and a coconut creamer. This week, we're also launching, probably by the time this goes live, we're launching a bulk jar, which is super cool. So not in single serve. It's 30 servings. of our original blend in one container, which has been a cool project for me. It's like kind of we're launching that along with our commitment to 1% for the planet, and we're partnering with Protect Our Winters. So it's kind of like a cool sustainability story because, we wanted to create a product that had a little less packaging as well. But yeah, I guess I do whatever needs to get done here most of the time, and still balance trying to be a climber too.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what's the hardest aspect of running a business for you?
It's just the time. I mean, I by no means can I say I run the business nowadays, but it's just in order to be productive with the business, like I need to be here, and there's only like so many hours in the day to climb. There's only so many hours in the day to ski. I still go on trips a year. And I'm just realizing, I'm way more productive and helpful to the company when I'm here, not when I'm gone, so.
What's come easy for you then with balancing all this together?
What's come easy? Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think we had a good launch basically and kickoff. And I think people in the outdoor industry like often recognize me from some of the films I've been in or climbing stuff. And that's really helped us carry our core consumer and our brand. And now we're just really kind of pushing to get into larger grocery conventional retailers, which is its challenge. Yeah.
Man, that's just, I mean, if someone would have told you you'd be making instant coffee and be a professional climber, it's hard to believe where life takes you, man. It's pretty cool.
It is. But it's been a good journey. It's definitely had its challenges for sure. But again, at the end of the day, it's I don't know. It's motivating to have something besides climbing. I think it's made my climbing be a lot more kind of diligent and really pick and choose. Like I'm not saying yes to every expedition anymore, but I'm like, okay, which ones do I really want to do, and why do I really want to do them, and is it worth it for me to go and do it?
Yeah. So what's coming up for you, and what kind of new things are you looking into? I asked because I recently watched a film of a scooter ride you did that was very Dumb and Dumber-esque. I loved it.
Yeah, that was a fun little side project, Freedom of the Wheels. We did that, me and Will, a couple winters ago when we drove our scooter from Boulder to Aspen. And that was just a fun little thing. And I might do some more stuff like that too, just because it's fun. But I also am heading to Mexico on Sunday to go to the Copper Canyon for a week to climb El Gigante with Maddie Hong and Savannah Cummings, which should be a fun kind of mission. Maddie's never really climbed a big wall before, so it'll be cool to like kind of take him and like let him loose a little bit and see what happens there. And then after that, heading down to South America for a big North Face event to Santiago, Chile. And then kind of home for a while. And then I will still kind of ironing out some summer plans. Probably try to go to Europe and climb a little bit, and maybe Canada.
Now, when you go on these expeditions, what's the purpose behind them other than climbing? Is it getting material for promotions with these companies, and what does that look like for you?
Mexico's kind of funny because it is just a fun climbing trip, though both Savannah and Maddie are photographers, so we'll definitely shoot some photos. Chile's not really an expedition, it's just an event. And then it's a balance of both of, nowadays, of finding an objective. Honestly, like most of the trips that I'm going on now are objective driven first and like try to figure out how to get cool content afterwards. I'm not really going on trips just to get content, basically. Like I'd rather just, I don't really, there's not enough time to do everything, right, to do that kind of stuff. So hopefully it all aligns typically, and, you get to go and send something you really want to send that's hard, or put up a new route and you can get cool photos. That's like the ideal scenario.
Cool. Well, any new sports you're getting into?
Not besides skiing. I was into paragliding a lot a couple years ago, and I got into a really bad accident about a year and a half ago and broke my body basically. So I haven't been flying since. And have kind of just gotten really psyched on winter skiing, and I'm doing a bunch of that kind of stuff, little ski mountaineering stuff. And psyched on keeping the sport simple, skiing and climbing at the moment.
So I take it you weren't injured too bad on that paragliding accident, to the point where it's like it kept you from doing anything you want to do now?
I'm still recovering for sure. I'm not 100%. I mean, I broke like a dozen bones in my body, like including like my neck and my back and both arms. So I'm definitely, it's not, I think in another 6 months, I'm hoping that I could like forget about it. But it's still definitely like a working process. Yeah. It was a bad accident. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Roll punches.
Oh man, well, man, be careful out there. Jeez. I'd hate for you to just have coffee.
No, I know. That wouldn't be good. I need it all.
You need it all. Oh, cool. So what do you, what's a piece of advice you could give somebody that's loves what they're doing? Maybe they're just really into their sport. They're young, but they want to create a lifestyle that's a little more sustainable as they get older. Hate to put you on the spot like that.
I don't know. I mean, what I did when I was a kid is I just kind of really just mono-focused on the one thing that, brought me happiness, and kind of just tried to learn as much along the way, like, sure, I was like really focused on climbing, but I think, being that focused on something really does teach you how to be focused on other things. So I think, if you truly are really passionate about one thing, then just roll with it, I think, that's what I did, and it seems to be working out. And I don't know how else to do it besides that,
Right. So there's really you could be doing something completely different in 2 years if that's the way your path went.
Totally. Yeah.
Good and bad. There's no way to know what's going to happen around each corner. And you seem to keep an open mind about it all, as well as a good attitude. And that's probably half the battle right there.
Yeah. And I think that is half the battle is, to roll with the punches, so to say, and to, be positive. And, it might not work out, but if you're really passionate about something and really thoroughly enjoy it, then do it. I mean, I would just be careful at not making sure you're doing things for the right reasons, like don't like try to climb things for sponsors or for photos or stuff like that. Make sure that your intentions are set. So maybe that's the better thing is I don't know. I can't give the best advice on how to go about it, but I could say how not to go about it. And that's like, make sure your intentions are always like your intentions and you're okay with your intentions. Yeah. Even if it is like, I'm going to do this for a photo, like make sure you're aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when you try to do something inauthentically like that, if it's trying to build a career or get sponsored, I don't know, it comes across, even on social media. I feel like it comes across, and it's, people see that and recognize it, and it's a huge turnoff from your quote brand. Totally.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, yeah. Matt, man, I really appreciate you being on. Congrats, I guess, on such an interesting and cool life, and for just taking the road wherever it leads.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. And we're looking forward to continue using Alpine Start and all our backpacking kits. People
Sounds
love it.
Good.
All right, man. Well, good luck on all your trips coming up, and have a great time. I'm sure you will.
Yeah, I know how to do that.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for listening to this episode. It really means the world to us that you want to spend your time with us. If you'd like to help us further, please just leave us a review on iTunes, share us on social media, tell your friends about us. You can become a patron, a supporter of the show for $5 a month at patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. And if you know somebody that would make a good guest, reach out. We're always looking for good adventure and outdoor stories. And lastly, thank you to our sponsors, whose messages follow right now. Athletic Brewing makes the best non-alcoholic craft beer. Go to their website at athleticbrewing.com and use the code in our show notes to save 15% on your first order. The Nomadic, the first outdoor subscription box that helps you go on more adventures with the latest gear by delivering themed monthly boxes with innovative products and an outdoor challenge to match. Learn more at thenomadic.com/ASP. After all this adventure talk, if you're needing some gear yourself, but you need some advice before buying, go to backpacktribe.com, where you can ask questions to the owners who have experience with all the gear, as well as all of it for sale right there on their website.